What do we mean then by the word opponent? What is the opponent in our lives every day? By the word opponent, we propose to indicate a set of forces acting within the field of human consciousness, which have the aim of disempowering and keeping it in an unconscious state, identified with imaginary mental constructions. This set of forces act upon us as a conservative element, as an opposite and contrary force to our drive for evolution and expansion of consciousness. The action of contrasting by the opponent is, among other things, to prevent us from achieving its existence and then transcend and transform it into a light force. Really recognizing the work of the opponent in our lives, exposing his work and transcending it, is a task that can be difficult, hard, leading to doubts and suffering, which ultimately is his attempt to stay alive. It's a task that can be painful, because we all begin from the same point. We believe to be it. However, to recognize and bring to light our opponent is one of the most important tasks that a human being is called upon to undertake, because the opponent is the guardian of the threshold, the thought to cross to enter the boundless lands that rightfully belong to us as magical human beings in a wonderful universe. One of the main purposes of the opponent, as the word indicates, is just to challenge us, to test our ability, our will to continue on the path that leads to expansion of consciousness without ever give up. It challenges us in order to test and thus liberate our intention to journey towards those majestic realizations that we can achieve, that are part of our heritage of magical and wonderful human beings. This concept of an opposing force that challenges our drive to consciousness may seem apparently bizarre, if not on the limits of credibility. Yet, this concept is well argued, described and studied in great detail in many traditions of inner research around the world. For example, in one of the sacred books of the Jewish esoteric tradition, the Torah, and in the wisdom teachings of the Kabbalah, there are complex descriptions of the purpose and weapons at disposal of an energetic entity, whose name has become synonymous with the forces of evil in the Catholic Church. Satan. Satan, whose meaning is no more than the opponent, is the energetic entity that, just as an adversary, challenges us to reach the light. Its main purpose, according to Jewish tradition, is precisely to create the opposite force to that which drives us to the light, to allow the release of the force of change, because without resistance, there wouldn't be space for even the striving for consciousness and the search of the light. This concept may be deep, but it goes far beyond the scope of this document. What is important to highlight here is the role that the opponent for excellence in Jewish tradition, Satan, holds in the expansion of consciousness. Satan, an energetic entity trying in every way to hinder us in our journey towards the light of consciousness. As we all know, Satan is also known as the devil, il diavolo in Italian language, But few know that the word diavolo comes from the Latin diabolus and from the ancient Greek diabolos, meaning the one who divides. Divides what? What makes no sense in dividing. What can be controlled only if divided. However, the traditions of inner research around the world seem to recognize other goals in the opponent, more pragmatic, in addition to the purely abstract goal that we have just indicated. One of our responsibilities as human beings is to understand and carry out with our eyes and our consciousness what all of these teachings is real, and what is only an allegory of a larger meaning. But it's good to know how the apprentices on the path of consciousness of various traditions are warned from the first, real, true confrontation that every one of them must support, the one with the illusory projection of themselves, the one with the opponent. Don Miguel Ruiz is a shaman of the Mesoamerican Toltec tradition. Born and raised in a family of healers in rural Mexico by a curandera, healer mother, and a nagual, shaman grandfather, conducts and disseminates worldwide the esoteric Toltec knowledge of his lineage. Don Miguel indicates the opponent with the name of a parasite. This is how, through his words, he describes his making and his purpose in the field of human consciousness. In the mind, we create the judge, a part of us that always judges everything we do or not do, all the emotions we feel or not feel. Normally, the judge finds us guilty, and we think of having to punish. The part of the mind that receives the judgment and feels the need of punishment is the victim. The victim is that part of us that says, "Poor me, I'm not too good, strong, not intelligent enough. What shall I do? How can I even try?" The judge and the victim build their existence on our system of beliefs, what we believe and what we do not believe. A system that has been instilled in our minds since childhood, when we believed in everything that the adults said. The Toltecs called this mechanism judge-victim system of beliefs with the name of parasite. The human mind is unhealthy because of a parasite that steals it the joy and the life energy. The parasite is transmitted like a virus from grandparents to parents to get to us, that we in turn pass it to our children, and its food are the negative emotions that come from fear. The parasite is a being made up of emotional energy, and it is a living being. It survives negative emotions and feeds on suffering. The parasite, an energetic entity that lives and feeds at the expense of another without giving anything in return. Carlos Castaneda is an anthropologist who has been immersed in another Toltec lineage of esoteric knowledge, that of Don Juan Matus. Don Juan Matus was the shaman leader, that is the nagual, of a Toltec lineage similar to that of Don Miguel Ruiz, probably originated from the same source, but now divided from it by many characteristics, such as the emphasis on the way of the warrior as a path towards personal fulfillment. Carlos Castaneda has in fact transcribed and published in his books many of the teachings he received from Don Juan. Near to the end of his existence, he decided to write something that also concerns the opponent very, very closely. That's what he said in a summary of his own words. the shamans of ancient Mexico discovered something transcendental. They discovered that we have a companion who remains with us throughout life, a predator that emerges from the depth of the universe and takes the domain of our lives, and we are its prisoners. If we complain, it stifles our protests. If we try to act independently, it does not allow it. The predator has taken the upper hand over us because we are his food, his source of livelihood. It was he, the predator, to instill our belief systems, the concept of good and evil, the social customs. It was he who set our hopes and expectations, as well as the dreams of success and the parameters of failure. He gave us greed, excessive desire, and cowardice. He made us creatures of habit, egocentric and prone to complacency. Using our egocentricity, the only conscious aspect left in us, the predator creates bursts of consciousness that then proceeds ruthlessly to consume. The predator gives us futile problems to force these flare-ups to emerge, and in this way makes us survive to continue eating the fiery energy of our pseudo-concern. The ancient shamans saw the predator. They call him the volador, the flyer, because it moves at leaps into the air. Not a pretty sight. It's a black shadow of impenetrable darkness, jumping in the air, and then lands. The volador, an energetic entity that lives and feeds at the expense of another, without giving anything in return. Eckhart Tolle is a man of our time, born and raised in Europe, who has gone through an experience of sudden and total awakening. Indeed, in one moment, he made the maneuver that for many of us requires years of practice and discipline before it can be dealt with. He has completely disidentified himself from illusory projection of reality created by his surface mind, and has achieved the state of consciousness in him that is an expression of what he truly is. This process, which could be called an enlightenment, but could not be described through words, has allowed him, among other things, to return to observe the life without the numerous and unnecessary mental filters created by the surface mind. In this state of observation, he saw something very interesting, something that has much to do with the opponent, something of which we give a summary in his own words. The pain accumulated in your body is a negative energy field that occupies your body and mind. If you look at it as an invisible entity on its own right, you are getting quite close to the truth. It's the emotional pain body. Watch out for any sign of unhappiness in yourself, in whatever form. It may be the awakening pain body. This can take the form of irritation, impatience, a somber mood, a desire to hurt, anger, rage, depression, and need to have some drama in your relationship, and so on. The pain body wants to survive just like every other entity in existence, and it can only survive if it gets you to unconsciously identify with it. It can then rise up, take you over, become you, and live through you. It needs to get its food through you. It will feed on any experience that resonates with its own kind of energy, anything that creates further pain in whatever form: anger, destructiveness, hatred, grief, emotional drama, violence, and even illness. Pain can only feed on pain. Once the pain body has taken you over, you want more pain. You become a victim or a perpetrator. Its survival depends on your unconscious identification with it, as well as on your unconscious fear of facing the pain that lives in you. The pain body, an energetic entity that lives and feeds at the expense of another without giving anything in return. Let's summarize then what the inner research traditions in the world, which we reported a small but significant sample, seem to suggest about the existence of the opponent. Within the field of human consciousness, there may arise, exist, prosper and operate an energetic entity that acts to deprive us of energy and thus keep us in a state of unconsciousness. Its goal is to continue to feed off a certain kind of our energy, and in the meantime prevent us to expand our consciousness, for not enabling us to become aware of its existence. Of course, to become aware of the existence of this entity and the way it works is the first and most important step to take. It will become a natural consequence then to immediately stop creating more food and sustenance for it. Stop feeding it. It will become less and less powerful until it is completely absorbed and transformed by our consciousness. When this transformation occurs, human beings cease to allow a voice in their head that talks to itself of unreal rubbish to be the sovereign of their existence, because they understand that that voice is not who they really are. When this transformation occurs, human beings cease to listen to a mind which obstructs, limits them, and bound them in every way possible instead of supporting and encouraging them, because they understand that that mind is not who they really are. When this transformation occurs, human beings become free. Whether it is therefore a parasite, a volador, a pain body, or the opponent, is an entirely irrelevant question, because it is not useful at all to know this on an intellectual level. What is really useful is to understand and see how it acts, what are the weapons it uses, what are the effects of its actions in our lives. To understand that we are in all likelihood its unwitting prey of energy. And above all, to understand that we, as beings of consciousness, are powerful and magical beings that have all the available tools to unmask it and transform it into our ally. It is about our happiness. It is about our well-being. It is about our peace. All states of being that are closer to us than the air we breathe and that are completely accessible to us. This is the reason why the opponent must be faced and transcended, not for who or what it is, but for how it reduces our existence. This is the only real challenge in our life before entering and living in the real world and being who we really are. However, the opponent will use every weapon at its disposal to oppose, because this is its nature and because this is the will of infinity. This is the reason why we need consciousness, clarity, and an unbending intent to face this challenge. This is the reason why in all the inner research traditions all over the world, those who accept this challenge are called warriors.